So I've had some questions about how I plan my garden, and I'd like to just share with you how I grow about 1,500 plants each year. And I don't really plan it because I've actually been doing this for quite a while, but maybe some of these ideas you can use in your own garden. Now, I do have about 5 different gardens. I grow different things in each garden. So the first one I have is my container garden, and here I grow mostly herbs. So think about your home. Do you have a little area maybe you could put a couple of containers out there, so when you're cooking you can just step out, grab a few herbs, and there you go. You don't have to make a big long hike out to a garden. My second garden is at home. This garden I use for my spring and fall vegetables and herbs because it receives a lot of shade, and those of you who have trees around your garden, you know those fill in the summer. A lot of them, if they're deciduous, will. So that helps me if I just plant spring and fall there. Then I have a container garden where I grow most of my hot chili peppers and some subtropical herbs in containers. Then I have a little place I visit in the summer, not very often, and that's called my river garden, where I do a lot of summer planting. I also, at that location, have a little square foot garden. It's probably my favorite garden, and I do a lot of succession planting there. And so let me go ahead and just explain to you how I do this and what I plant each year. So here is a quick breakdown of the different kind of plantings I do in order to grow about 1,500 plants each year, and most of this is through succession plantings. I do very little indoor starting in relation to the rest of my plantings. And if you're not familiar with succession plantings, it's in the All New Square Foot Gardening book for all of you new gardeners. It's an easy way to always have fresh produce. So my favorite thing to plant is probably lettuce. A lot of times I will let this mature, but most of the time I just sprinkle seeds out throughout my garden wherever there's a free space, and I'll let it grow. I might pull it before it's completely mature, or I'll go ahead and start pulling it at a baby stage. And the reason why I do this is because lettuce matures pretty quick, and I can usually harvest the greens very young, and then I can free up that space in my garden for things like spinach or something else that I want to grow. So I always try to have at least some of the space filled in. Now, another thing I like to grow a lot of is spinach. I probably grow about 300 spinach plants each year. I've shown you how to grow this in a square foot garden. We space these 9 per square foot. And then also I like to grow carrots, but not as much as I like to grow spinach. So I could grow carrots and succession plant those every 2 weeks if I wanted to, but I typically limit my carrot production each year to around 80 carrots. Now, my peas are something that I plant in the spring and in the fall, and I do this in my square foot garden. I do this in my square foot garden at home because I really have to keep those harvested. And then in the summer, instead of planting peas, I plant bush beans. I plant a lot of bush beans, and I succession plant these as well. A good annual herb that I like to plant is chervil. I plant that from seed, and I do that a few times. Cilantro, I plant that all the time throughout the spring, summer, and fall, even though in the summer it tends to bolt pretty fast. But I went over that with you in the cilantro video. Scallions are something wonderful, and I'm always tossing seeds out of scallions. I'll have those throughout all my gardens, as well as dill. One thing about dill is it self-sows, so it will reseed very easily for me. Usually I'll have it up in the springtime without having even planted it myself. Now, basil, I grow about 4 basils every year, different kind of basils, and I'll have those plants throughout all of my gardens as well. I plant those in the summer by seed. And then a couple of other things I like to plant by seed are turnip greens, as well as Chinese leaf cabbage. Those are 2 great things that grow very fast in the cool season. Again, I'm in zone 6B, so I don't have extremely hot summers. And Swiss chard is also something else that grows well in my area. A lot of times you can speed up your plants by sprouting them first, like beans or peas. These bigger seeds do great by just scarification with water first. And here is just a summary of what I just went over. You're welcome to pause the screen and read it a little bit more closely. Let me know if you have any questions in the comment section. Now I start indoors, probably about 150 plants each year. That might sound like a lot, but the way I grow things, it takes up very little space, and I've gone over that with you in various videos. Of course, we all start tomatoes indoors, and I move those out as soon as the frost has passed, as well as peppers. Of course, I have my pepper container garden where I grow a lot of hot chili peppers. I love growing peppers because they are so easy to put up for the winter storage. I don't have to spend much time in the middle of the summer preserving food. Just pop them in a freezer bag. I also like to grow eggplant as well as parsley, so I start those indoors. Fennel too. I don't grow fennel every year, but about every other year I will. Rapini is a beautiful plant. I love to grow it, and I have to start it indoors, just like broccoli. A lot of these, the cooler season vegetables, go in my home garden. Pak choy is wonderful, another little Chinese cabbage. My favorite one, of course, is the Napa cabbage. I love to grow this. I grow about 12 heads a year. And then collard greens are really nice in the winter garden, as well as kale. I grow a lot of different kind of kales, dinosaur kale, Siberian kale here, as well as curly kale. All of these I start indoors. I do start Swiss chard as well, but I also direct sow it into my garden. It's just a wonderful, easy plant to grow. And I start nasturtiums indoors, and I also direct sow those into my garden. So here's a quick summary of what I just went over. You're welcome to pause it if you like. So for most of my summer vegetables, I direct sow those at the river garden. That's the outdoor garden, not my square foot garden. And so I love to grow green beans up trellises there. I also will grow it up corn. So green beans are really easy to grow, a little stalk of corn, very similar to the Three Sisters method. And so these are my pole green beans. And I don't grow a lot of these. I just do one planting of these each year. Even though if I had more room, I could do about 2 different plantings of pole green beans. And I like to grow some type of southern pea or a Crowder pea. A lot of you might be familiar with that. I grew something called lady pea last year. And then of course I mentioned corn. You can succession plant corn as well. However, I only have enough room for one planting of corn, and I don't grow that every year. I grow that about every 2 years. And then of course I always like to grow some summer squash. So patty pan is one of my favorites, as well as zucchini. This little Romanesco zucchini is a nice little treat in the garden. And then I direct sow also sunflower seeds. I love to grow the mammoth sunflowers. They produce a lot of seeds, and they're just really pretty in the garden. And then I always try to grow some type of melon. Last year it was a watermelon, as well as the year before. And I'll also grow one winter squash. Garlic is something that I plant every year. And I also like to grow onions and shallots. So I plant all of these by start that I usually pick up at the nursery. I'll pick up garlic cloves or onions and the shallots. I don't plant those from seed. And of course potatoes. I love to have new potatoes early in the spring. And so I quickly harvest those so I can make room for something else to plant behind it. And so I love to grow rose fin, apple fingerling potatoes, and then Purple Majesty is another favorite. These 2 potatoes I plant from seed potatoes that I also buy at the nursery. And then cucumbers. I grow about 3 different kind of cucumbers. However, last year I only grew one kind, as it's getting harder for me to find a nice sunny area for my cucumbers since my home garden is receiving so much shade lately. I like to grow pickling cucumbers and the European long slender cucumbers. And then edible flowers always attract pollinators to the garden, so I'll plant some anise hyssop from seed, as well as calendula, which does very well in the cooler temperatures. Borage is wonderful for attracting bees to the garden. So here's a quick shot of what I just went over. If you have any questions, please leave them below the video. I'll be more than happy to help you. And then of course perennials. I think perennials are probably every gardener's favorite plant because they require so little work. And so here are just some of the ones that I grow. I grow chives, love to grow chives. It's just so beautiful in the spring when they start popping up with their little blossoms. Of course, we can use the blossoms for cooking. I have these planted in the river garden, my home garden, and in my container garden. And I love them with a fresh spinach salad with some strawberries in the spring. And then, of course, Echinacea. Echinacea is just beautiful. I love to see it blooming. I have this in all of my gardens except for my herb container garden and the pepper container garden. And then Greek oregano, I grow this in 3 different gardens. I have it at home, and then I have it here at the river, and I love to dry this for the winter. French tarragon, I grow about 3 plants of French tarragon, and it's just a lovely herb. I just love to grow this, and I have to grow that from a cutting, but it comes back for me every year. And then thyme, I don't know if we can ever have too much thyme. And so this is lemon thyme here, probably my favorite, and this is at the river garden. It's just really lovely early in the spring. And then asparagus, always the first plant to pop up out of the ground for me. So I'll try to run out there and grab a few stalks of asparagus and make a quick omelet with it. And then sage, garden sage. I have 2 plants of sage, but it's not one of my favorite herbs. And then, of course, always strawberries. I have moved all of my strawberries from my home garden out to the river garden, and they're doing much better. As a matter of fact, they doubled last year, so I have double of what I replanted out there because they stretch and grow with their runners. And then mint. Mint always comes back for me. This is apple mint. One of my favorites is called spearmint. I have spearmint growing at home in my home garden and also at the river garden. And I have some in my containers, along with rosemary, where I have it in my container garden and at the river. So that's a nice little treat. And depending on the rosemary, it may or may not survive my winters. And then I have blueberries. Always fun to see those pop out with little berries there in the spring. Then some of my plants I grow in containers, and I have to bring these indoors in the winter for protection. So I oftentimes will bring those right into my home or my garage. So I have a Meyer lemon tree. I have this kaffir lime tree, which I absolutely love. I have 2 of those. And then I have a pomegranate. I guess this is really a bush. And it has actually produced pomegranates for me in zone 6B. And then a calamandan, it's like a little miniature orange. And then some galangal, which is like a Thai ginger. I usually will put one of these in the ground, and I always keep one in a container as a backup, as well as my lemongrass. I like to plant that out in my garden, but I always keep one in a container so that I can overwinter it and grow it again the next year. And then just sweet bay. That's a great little herb. So here is just a quick rundown of some of the things that I have to grow in containers and protect those where I live in zone 6B in the U.S. So there you go. I hope this gave you some ideas of different things that you may be able to plant this coming growing season. And if you have any questions, please leave them below in the comment section. I'll be more than happy to help you. Also, make sure you have clicked that little bell beside the subscribe button so that you will receive all notifications from my channel. And as always, feel free to share this on your favorite social media. I sure would appreciate it. Thanks so much for watching, and y'all have a beautiful day.